All right. Let me call the Parklands meeting of September 12th, 2024 to order. And Ms. Rossick, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we've got quite a full house tonight. This is amazing. And it's my first meeting I've chaired, so I'm assuming that was an exciting enough pull for everyone to come. Seriously, let's get the meeting going because it looks like we have a lot to do. Can we start with the roll call, please?
Committee member Rossick?
Here.
Meeting member, Nye.
Here.
Vice Chair McKay.
He's no longer the vice chairman.
Yeah,
And Chair Cooper.
I'm here.
We have a forum.
All right. Why don't we start with the Public Work Director's report?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Derek Wiesk, and today is also my first Parklands committee meeting. I just want to announce a couple things. First of all, since your last meeting, we've had some new additions to the staff. I've been here about 2 weeks now, just getting familiar with the city. To my right is Tamika Cook, who just started as your city clerk. And then Carrie Kelman was recently appointed by the city council to be your new city manager. So just want to let you know those three names. And then finally, as had been mentioned, the former chair of the committee submitted a resignation this week, so he'll no longer be joining us. That's Paul McCabe. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weiss. Why don't we entertain any communications from the public before we get into our actual agenda? I have several cards here. It's not clear how many want to speak. Just let me outline the rules quickly for you. Normally, in order to speak, you have to fill out one of these requests to speak. So if anyone hasn't done that and is interested in speaking, then you should fill out one of these cards. Your limit is 3 minutes on any public communication, and we certainly welcome to hear what everybody has to say. So who wants to start? Okay, come on up.
If it's not on the agenda.
Has to make sure it's not on.
Yeah. And just to make sure, is this an agenda item or something not on the agenda?
This is on your agenda.
Oh, no, we're not doing that quite yet. You'll get your opportunity, though, don't worry.
Number 3.
Okay. Yeah, so right now, we just want to hear from anyone in the public who just wants to make a statement. You have 3 minutes if you're interested. And if there isn't anyone who wants to do that, we'll get right to the agenda. Did anyone fill out a card who just wants to speak on a non-agenda item? Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. Well, with that, then let's dive into our agenda this evening. First of all, do we have, well, let's start with agenda item number 1, which is PC 57724. An application to remove 6 Peruvian pepper trees located in the parkways on Epping Road adjacent to 2100 Paseo del Mar and 2101 Chelsea Road. Do we have a staff report?
Good evening, Chair Cooper, members of the Parklands Committee, members of the audience, and the community. The request tonight is to remove 6 pepper trees, 4 of which are adjacent to 2100 Paseo del Mar, and 2 of which are located in the parkway adjacent to 2101 Chelsea Road. The reason for the application is a view corridor, the blockage of the view corridor. And this happens to be a picture that was taken in 2022, previously, for the previous application, when the same residents came forward to request trimming of these trees. And this is what it is today. The arrows represent the edges of the buildings, and so that would be the corridor. So the scenic view is the ocean, and the tree age, the age of the tree, we're estimating around 16, 17 years. They've been in the ground, and they probably are a little over 20 since they started. There was a previous application to trim the trees by thinning in 2022, PC 56822. And there are 2 letters of support for the removal of the trees that have been submitted. In considering view-related applications when views are or are becoming significantly obstructed, the Parklands Committee shall respect the following considerations as outlined in Resolution R 1813 of the Tree Management Policy. To the greatest extent practical, strive to preserve or enhance scenic views from the main viewing area of a residential structure. 6 Peruvian peppers are requested to be removed. 2 of the peppers are adjacent 2100 Chelsea Road, as we mentioned earlier, and 4 of the pepper trees are adjacent 2100 Paseo del Mar. The 6 pepper trees were requested and planted by the city and are visible in pictures in 2008. And so I'll go through these. This was 2008 at both addresses, and you can see the trees. Looks like I'm a little ahead of myself. The main viewing area is the second story of the outdoor balcony. Seems like maybe the slides are a little out of order. I think maybe I hit the wrong button.
There we go.
So these are in 2012, as you can see, 2016, 2018.
And that's trees
PowerPoint is not moving in my presentation. That's why I'm getting a little confused.
Are you able to advance it yourself and
That's
or
what
it's
I'm
not
doing.
cooperating?
That's interesting.
Let me see. So now we're at this one right here. So the main view area is the second story outdoor balcony of 2101 Chelsea Road. The trees labeled 1 and 2 are not within the view corridor of 2101 Chelsea Road and seem to be added at the request of a neighbor. Pepper tree number 3 appears to be obscuring the home of 2020 Paseo del Mar more than the view. The view is being obstructed by the Peruvian pepper trees 4, 5, and 6, along with the ficus hedge. The street trees adjacent to 2100 Paseo del Mar were approved to be trimmed by the applicants in a previous application, but that has not worked to their satisfaction. They are now asking for all 6 trees to be removed. Wow. This is strange. Not sure what slide I'm on because of this projector here, but
All right, so that's number 3.
yeah, so this is tree number 3 in 2022, and it was 22 feet tall. I'm going to use it manually. And this is the view of the tree in 2022. It was 21 feet tall. And presently, it's 20,
It's not going.
You're trying to advance it now, and it's
Yeah,
not
it's
going?
not cooperating.
no, it's
Okay.
cooperating.
We can see it here, but it's not showing up here.
The way you were flipping through it, I think we've seen a lot of it, but not in any
Maybe this will do it.
order.
How about if you click that? It's not coming up.
It's not coming
How
up.
about if you use that?
That's what we were using, it wasn't moving.
No, it's just stopped. Okay, now it's just stuck, yeah.
Are you cabled into,
It's just stuck on this slide.
yeah, but is your laptop, the cable that goes,
We can see what he wants here, but
no, I know, but maybe it's the cable
Right,
that goes.
the cable. Is it, could it be the cable? Isn't plugged into the...
That's for something different. I wonder if I go resume slideshow. I've done that.
Carl, it was advancing before,
What's that?
it was advancing to the next photo kind of rapidly before.
Yeah.
Are you able to
So we
make
see-
it advance?
We're seeing a change on the screen here,
On here, but not on there.
but it's not.
Do you want to reboot? Just get out and,
Well, I think it's more his connection to
let's see.
the over. I
From
it's
beginning.
connection to the overhead?
Yeah.
Is that what we're having a problem
think
with?
that's what it
Yeah.
is. Because he's
Let's
seeing
take
it
a
on his
5-minute
computer.
recess.
All right. Why don't we do that? Apologize, everybody. We're having, due to technical difficulties,
So,
we need to take a 5-minute recess and get this straightened out, and then we'll move it along. Thanks.
make sure this can...
Work, and maybe it's going to fail.
All right, with no further ado, let's call the meeting back to order.
So the main,
So we were proceeding with the staff report on petition number 1, 2101 Chelsea Road. Mr. Forrester, please go ahead, Carl.
so the main view area, we'll go back just a little bit. Main view area is the second story of the outdoor balcony of 2101 Chelsea Road. The trees labeled 1 and 2 are not within the view corridor of 2101 Chelsea Road and seem to be added for the request of another neighbor. Number 3, Peruvian pepper tree, appears to obscure the home at 2020 Paseo del Mar more than the view. The view is being obstructed by the Peruvian pepper trees 4, 5, and 6, along with the ficus hedge. The street trees adjacent to 2101 Paseo del Mar were approved to be trimmed by the applicants in a previous application, but that has not worked to their satisfaction. They are now asking for all 6 trees to be removed. This is the tree number 3 in 2022, and it was 21 feet tall. Presently, it's 25 feet tall. And this is tree number 4, is presently 22 feet tall. And these are pepper trees 5 and 6, and they're 18 feet tall. And just to recap that, this is the view in 2022, and this is the current view. The Parklands Committee is also to respect the neighborhood character and not significantly alter the unique feeling of a particular neighborhood. The neighborhood character is created by all the trees on Epping Road, but no apparent street tree character exists beyond the 6 pepper trees. The street has very few trees beyond these 6 pepper trees and lacks a definable character. Parklands is also to respect the privacy of neighbors by maintaining, to the greatest extent practical, adequate screening of structures in yards from the sight of neighbors. Privacy and screening will be reduced for 2100 and 2020 Paseo del Mar by the removal of trees number 3, 4, 5, and 6. Removal of trees number 1 and 2 will only reduce privacy for the applicant. There is no public safety issue being created by the trees, and the Peruvian pepper tree is the designated street tree for Epping Road and was designated in 1995, and it was reconfirmed in 2001. The options available to the Parklands Committee tonight is to approve the request to remove the 6 Peruvian pepper trees and approve the conditions of approval that are listed below, deny the request to remove the 6 Peruvian pepper trees, or provide alternative direction. And that would complete the staff report.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Do we have any questions of staff from the committee?
I have a couple of questions, Carl. This might be a question I should know the answer to already, so I apologize. Why don't we let multiple neighbors, or why is the application just for one person versus allowing other neighbors to participate?
It began one time when we had an application to remove 55 trees, and there was 10 houses that were involved, and it required staff to try to see a view from 10 houses and all the neighbors below to try to defend it from each and every vantage point, and it was just too cumbersome. So they reduced it down and determined that the application needs to be viewed from one perspective, one viewpoint, one view location from one applicant.
So, I mean, in theory, if we wanted to change the application, we could change it to 2 or 3 neighbors maximum if we wanted to at some point.
I guess that would be a change of the tree management policy. It wouldn't be a.
Is that in the tree management policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that was one question. Have you contacted or have you spoken to the residents on Paseo del Mar that the trees are actually on their property?
No, we just posted signs in front of their house.
And they never, after they got the sign, they never contacted you with a pro or a con of removing the trees?
No, there was no communication.
Oh, so we have no idea how they feel about the removal of the trees?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, those are my only two questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. Carl, it seems to me that 1 and 2 are not really in play here. I mean, they don't have anything to do really with the petitioners, and they don't, I went out there and talked to the petitioners and looked at everything, and I don't think those 2 trees really have anything to do with the petitioner's view, and therefore I don't think there's anything to do with those, and I think you concur with that, it sounds like.
Yes, and that's what the staff report had indicated.
And so we're looking at trees 3, 4, 5, and 6, and just to explore options, what about restoring view by replanting there are some palms downstream of these, I noticed, and is that an option, even though it's not a street tree, as far as you're concerned?
There would be an option for 2100 Paseo del Mar because the Kentia palm is the designated street tree for Paseo del Mar, but once it passes the alley and it's in front of 2101 Chelsea Road, the designated street tree would be different. There would be a way for someone to ask for a change of designation or have a different tree in front of their house, but from staff's perspective, on a corner house, the resident has the option to use either tree that's designated for either street. And sometimes they split them, and sometimes they keep a uniform. I believe the applicant at 2100 picked the pepper trees for the screening ability and picked the Kentia palms where they are for the kindness for the view.
Right. So in terms of, and we'll hear from the applicant, I'm sure, but in terms of the view, did you say that you didn't think 3 really affected the view? Because
That was my conclusion because of the view corridor, the view, you can't see through the house at 2020 Paseo del Mar.
all right.
Go back to that slide.
That's okay, because I remember just looking at that tree. It's quite a monster of a tree.
It's the biggest of them all.
Yeah. Okay. And so we've already weighed in on this, as I recall. I was on the committee, and we voted to trim these trees. I guess that's another option. I'm just trying to think about different ways to maybe deal with the view issue. So, okay, that's all the questions I have. Ann?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So back in 2022, you approved to trim 4 trees, and that included the 2 trees that is adjacent to 2101 Chelsea, correct?
That's correct.
And I just don't understand why those 2 trees are petite and the other 4 are, I don't know which other 2 you trimmed, but they're so much bigger. So I was wondering your opinion on that.
You're wanting to know why the other trees have grown robustly and the trees in front of 2101 Chelsea Road have not?
They still look nice, they just aren't that big.
I would tend to believe they were trimmed by different companies at different times.
So of the 4 trees that were trimmed back in 2022, tree 1 and 2 were trimmed? Or do you know that?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the other 2 trees that were trimmed? What were the other 2 trees, 3 and 4? Or 5
All
and
6 trees have been trimmed, but the ones that are in front of or adjacent to 2100 Paseo del Mar have been trimmed in a different way.
But when the other application was made in 2022, which 4 trees were trimmed?
The ones in front of 2100 Paseo del Mar?
Oh,
So 3, 4, 5.
So 3, 4, 5, and 6 were trimmed?
That's correct,
At that time?
yes.
Oh. Oh, okay. So the...
I think Mr.
So 1 and,
Larson-
oh, okay, so 1 and 2, which is on our application today, wasn't part of that application?
No,
Okay, and so they were just trimmed at a later time, perhaps, and by another
that's
company?
my assumption.
Oh, okay.
I think that Mr.
Oh.
Larson could probably answer that question.
Yeah, then maybe they'll answer it. Because it just shows, in your staff report, you say that if you were to annually trim these trees, they could stay more modest, or at the height that you trimmed them.
That is very true, and that could be a possible option
Okay.
to explore.
I mean, it looks like 1 and 2 have been trimmed more recently and are more modest. I mean, maybe they'll talk to that. The other thing is, it has been brought up, even if, like you say, number 3 is, not in their view corridor, but they do bring up, and it was brought up in some of the letters, about the hedge at 2100 Paseo del Mar. What can the height of a hedge be?
The hedge was conditioned by the Planning Commission to be between 8 and 10 feet, and that seems to be the subject of a civil lawsuit at this moment, because it's on private property.
And so,
I don't think we can discuss the hedge. It's,
I know, but
It's,
but
well,
I'm just saying there was letters
Yeah.
that
Well-
talked about it, so I just wanted to raise it, that that it was, okay, all right. Well, it was part of the letters,
well,
Okay, so that's not part of our discussion today,
And
To be
we have
clear-
no jurisdiction at this moment over that hedge, yes.
right?
To-
But the only reason I'm bringing it up is because residents want to know, like, what they come to us about, in terms of their view and what they have to do about their other view issues, in terms of what people...
So there's no rules about the height of hedges in the city unless it's been something that's been made a condition by the Planning Commission when the house was built,
Okay,
which I believe is the reason this
the reason,
hedge
okay,
is part of a condition.
okay. I probably will have other questions after public comment, but that's all I have for you.
Carl, just to follow up, so if we talked about something like yearly trimming of the trees, how would that look? Is that something that the cost of which the applicant can bear as a compromise to taking out the trees in order to enhance his view corridor?
That would be a condition that would be placed on the applicant, not the city.
Right.
how low can the trees be trimmed?
I've thought about that, and they can be trimmed really low, obviously, but it depends on what works for the applicant. And in my mind, I thought that a 15-foot mark may be an appropriate place that they would be able to be brought down and the view of the ocean would be exposed.
And if you took them down to 15 feet, I know you can't predict the weather, but how often would you have to trim them to keep them at that
Annually?
annually? Okay.
I have a go back. On tree number 1 and 2, was that done with a application, or with a permit, I should say?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Lastly, if we did say we wanted to trim them down to 15 feet, would the applicant have to come back every year to do this process to get them trimmed, or could you just say they could do it?
You could make the motion to include that it's approved to do annually.
Okay.
And when they applied for a permit, it would be issued.
Okay.
Right?
I just have one more. So there is
Give you one more
there's a pathway between the two houses?
Yes.
Okay. And is the city maintaining that pathway?
It doesn't look that way,
I
but
know. That's why
we have had discussions with the landscape maintenance company, and all those alleys are supposed to be put on a schedule. We've asked them why they're not done. They're something that's done 3 times a year, and they're in need right now, and so they're scheduling them as we speak.
And that's done through Bennett, right?
Bennett Landscaping, yes.
Okay, so that's something the city could say that they could do better in terms of our contract with Bennett, but in terms of trimming trees, we've always had, or the city has always had issues about being able to do that being able to pay it to a schedule, right?
The city has a very small budget for
Yeah.
tree trimming and a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's why we asked the applicants to help, or the residents to help. Okay.
Right.
All right. Any more questions of staff before we get into the applicant and the speakers? All right. I see that the applicants are here, the Larsons, and is there someone here to speak on behalf of the applicant? I believe there is.
I submitted a card.
I know you did. Come on up, Mr. Rigg.
Mr. Chair, how long will I have to speak?
5 minutes on behalf of the applicant.
So, and,
I imagine you want your PowerPoint too, right?
Wait,
pardon me?
You're going to want your PowerPoint?
I would, please. Yes, please. So the, we were passed.
you get 5 minutes, Mr. Rigg, and let's go. Go ahead.
He has to look at that.
I'm waiting for my PowerPoint.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. And then just in the, we were expecting 3 minutes for each of us, and we can work with the 5 minutes, but what I would do is I would speak for 2.5 minutes, and then Sally would speak for the rest of the 5. That's the way Planning Commission typically does it, is if we're following them, which is 5 minutes for everybody.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
thank
fine.
you.
The other speakers who aren't applicants get only 3. But
Correct.
you can divide up your 5. how
Thank you,
see
sir.
fit. Sure.
Okay. And once the,
Keep your fingers crossed.
I know.
It's not connecting again.
Not connected.
That was weird, the way the cameras just froze. The signal was good, but the camera,
There.
yay. Ready?
Let's go.
All right. Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Parklands Committee. My name is Alan Rigg, and I'm assisting Kirby and Sally with their application. Next slide, please. I want to go through the specific findings tonight detailed in the tree management policy, as I strongly believe you're going to find that the findings can be made. Next slide, please. We're showing 6 trees here, but we've learned and agree 1 and 2 are not part of it. We added those for our neighbor as we looked at the overall view impacts. And so let's just forget about them. We won't talk about them. We're going to look at 3 and 6. Next slide, please. Here you can see the ocean beyond when these 4 trees were significantly trimmed after the Larsons received approval from the Parklands Committee to trim them. Also, please note the height of the hedge at the time. And just to clarify, they have great views from their second floor balcony, but these views are identical, if not nearly identical, to what they have in their kitchen, as well as in their living room, so their primary living areas. Next slide, please. Now that the trees in the hedge have grown, obliterating their views, the hedge is on private property, and its growth makes the impacts on the trees even worse as it takes away the view as well. The hedge is the subject of city action, and it's not a civil lawsuit, it's actually a lawsuit against the city by that applicant because they don't want to comply. And they've been, the Larsons have been wronged by this hedge, and the trees have grown and taken away the last little bit of view that they have. It would only seem right and fair to give it back to them. Next slide, please. 1 and 2, let's go next slide because it doesn't matter. To go into the findings, I think it's obvious that the findings for the views being impacted can be made as the views are significant. Next slide, please. And as mentioned by Carl and in the staff report, no consistent character in the neighborhood with street trees, no real street trees on the other side of the street with the high school, and then only a few on our side of the street, and none of them being peppers. So there's really no neighborhood character that's consistent. Next slide, please. There are no privacy impacts, so this finding must be made. As far as the privacy that 2100 Paseo del Mar gets from these trees, it's primarily of their driveway and of their unapproved sports court. So I don't think that there's a lot of reason to maintain their privacy. Next slide, please. The trees have no impact on public safety, as Carl mentioned. I agree. Next slide, please. And it's true that the designated street tree, but they're the only ones on the street. Next slide, please. I know there's been quite a bit of discussion about the tree management policy, but in all the versions I've seen, it all boils down to the 5 findings in the current policy. Per these findings, all 4 trees in this application should be approved to be removed. The Larsons have gone down the path of trimming, and it has been significantly unsuccessful. We estimate the trees would need, if they were at 15 feet, which would still have view impacts, you'd have to initially trim them to 12 so they could grow up to the view again, and those would be stumps. As the trees have grown, the required reduction would leave stumpy trees, and they would have to trim them very, very often. Their payment to the tree bank would allow for the right trees to be planted in the right place and not in anyone's views, furthering the city's efforts to renew our aging urban forest. Thank you for your time, and Sally has the rest. Thank you.
Good evening, and my husband Kirby's here for moral support. Thank you for all of the time and effort that you 3 especially have put into this in our application by coming to our house and looking at everything. We would really like to ask you all tonight to consider, when you're making your decision, what the Planning Commission had already approved on the home at 2100 Paseo del Mar. They were given the approval to build that massive house based on the fact that the view corridors would remain open. That being said, we literally designed our house around that view. We, like Alan had said, our living room, our kitchen, and our outdoor family room, where we can sit and only see a hedge and trees now, was supposed to take in the ocean view. As you know, 2 years ago, we tried this process. We were approved to have the trees trimmed. We spent over $2,000 having that done. We had a small view for a very small window of time. You know, we respectfully are asking that these trees be removed and not put the burden on us as the applicants who were promised a view, designed a home around that view, and then wrongfully have had that view taken away once the street trees went in. When you continuously, we don't think it's fair that we have to continuously spend money to have trees trimmed that would not even restore our view. It's obvious that the neighbor's hedge is also part of the problem, and as of this date, you know, they have not been made to comply by the city. There is legality involved in there. But setting that situation aside, we feel that we have also been wronged by the mere planting in the first place of these trees in the very view corridor that we were told would remain open. You know, we were pointing out that 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the ones that obstruct our view. Number 3 absolutely also obstructs our view. Number 1 and 2, the reason we put those in were out of good faith for our neighbors, because they were also given that same promise of the view corridors to remain open.
I think, is the time elapsed? Okay.
Just to have clarification for Carl's question or somebody's question, all 5 of those trees were trimmed at the same time in 2022?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And just to reiterate one thing, Alan already brought it up, but the trees have gotten, 3 and 4 have gotten so big, and you have to trim them down to 12 feet to be able to see over them. We had when we were in negotiations with 2100 Paseo del Mar for our lawsuit, before the lawsuit actually started, they trimmed the hedge down to 11 feet, which you could see over that. 12 feet, you could still see, but anything higher than 12 feet.
Mr. Larson, I think unfortunately, as for the applicant, I think you guys have extinguished your time. I think we need to move on, but
Okay.
I was glad to hear what you added there.
3 minutes?
Oh, no. For the applicant, you get a total of 5. So we let you go a little bit because I wanted to.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Consideration.
Sure. All right. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak on this application from the public? You'll have 3 minutes. And I have several cards here. Who wants to be first?
Why don't you say the names?
Mr. Kucinich, please.
They're Asians, I don't see them.
State your name and address.
So I'm the guy that lives at 2108 Chelsea Road, across the street from the Larsons and 3 houses down. And I'm the guy that needs number 1 tree talked about. So anyway, let me let you know what's happening. I've lived at 2112 and 2108 since my birth. So I live next door to the house I was born in. And we didn't have corridor views when I was a kid. As a matter of fact, there was a cul-de-sac there was dirt roads down to Paseo del Mar. Paseo del Mar was a dirt road, and everything was garbanzo beans. There was no high school, there was no hill, and I used to be able to see downtown Los Angeles from my front window. But now I have a corridor view, and that number 1 tree would be helpful if it was gone. Bye-bye. Pepper trees are an interesting choice for this because they grow really fast. And once you trim them, they come right back. I've had several on rental properties that I've owned, and they've always been high maintenance and very messy. So anyway, the house that the Larsons built was built after lots of discussion back and forth, and they maintained their height. And unfortunately, the 2100 house I know we're not supposed to talk, the hedge grow up too, and that's killing me as well. So appreciate your consideration on all of this. You know, when those trees weren't there, we didn't even notice when they were there, when they weren't there. So, if they were gone, it wouldn't be a big deal. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Who else wants to speak from the public on this petition involving 2101 Chelsea Road? Come on up.
Yes, I'm Bob Vasey, and I'm here in support of the Larson's application. The CC&Rs of the Homes Association, the general plan of PV Estates, state restrictions have been carefully worked out for every part of PV Estates to accomplish the following results. 1, to preserve the fine views of oceans, mountains, and parks. In 1924, Frederick Olmsted wrote, Palos Verdes stands head and shoulders above any other great community in these respects. The topography in combination with the street layout gives extraordinary opportunity for permanently unobstructed ocean views, even from relatively small lots over the slopes below. Thus, the heritage of views goes back to the beginnings of the city. In the last 18 to 20 years, there have only been 1% of the city-owned trees that have been removed for views, and most of those have had trees replaced or money put into the tree bank. So it's not like the city's losing trees. One point that was just brought up by Susie earlier was the number of applications. The tree management policy does not limit the number of applicants. Nowhere on there does it limit that. I contacted Anastasia a couple of years ago regarding this, because only on the application form does it say there can only be 1 applicant. And she was unable to provide the background on how that got there. It's reasonable to think that if more than 1 person is blocked, has their views blocked by the same trees, they should be able to apply themselves. We have a situation here tonight, I think, where one of the neighbors is blocked and so forth. I went through this 2 years ago before the Parklands Committee, and there were 5 other neighbors involved with views blocked by the same tree, and it was turned down and denied. So, but again, I would like to see the Larsons get their trees removed. If there's 20,000 trees in the city, and 1% of those trees would be 200 trees, we're talking about 6 trees. So it's not a big deal. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vacy, appreciate that. All right, do we have anyone else who wants to speak on this petition from the public? All right, thank you very much. Now, so, who wants to talk first about this petition? Susie, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I have the tree management policy here, and I just reviewed it, and I don't see that in the tree management policy
It's in the
itself.
application.
In the application, okay, so not in the management policy, in the application, okay.
Put it into the new one that wasn't.
Yeah, that wasn't, we had it in. we
Well, the
put
new one's not approved, so
But
we're
what
going...
he's saying is we
No, I understand.
included the application.
Yeah, but the one in 18 doesn't mention, the actual tree management policy doesn't say it, but you're saying the application does,
in the
okay.
application.
Just so we're clear. Yeah, I mean, I love trees. I hate to see trees go down. It breaks my heart when they do. But I also hate to see the residents have to I don't know, be punished for the resident in the front not having any part of this. You know, if they were here and they were explaining to us why they're not trimming the trees, or, you know, what their feeling is. I mean, it's almost, I feel strongly that the residents shouldn't be punished for what they had nothing to do with, and especially after we know that the Planning Commission approved it a different way. So, you know, I definitely think tree number 3 should go down, no question. I support, like I said, I love trees. I hate trees to go down, I do. And I walk this way all the time with my dog. But I also understand the view corridor, and they've been here 2 years ago, and are they going to have to spend $2,000 every year so that they can have a view? That's not what they signed up for either. So, you know, I'm like I said, I don't normally do that, but I'm leaning towards removal of the trees. At least 3, 4, 5, and 6. I understand the idea of 1 and 2, but I think that based on it being a separate application, that would be something separate. But my opinion.
Okay. Ann, do you have any comments?
This is so strange, because these other neighbors aren't here, right?
Yeah.
Very strange. In the report, when both houses were coming up at the same time, or being built at the same time, the Paseo Del Mar, you know, was finished first, but they were both being built at about the same time. They had an understanding, and part of that understanding, I thought, included planting these trees. You know, they agreed to plant these trees, and they didn't turn out the way they thought.
But I think they agreed to trim them too.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it-
And I do find it baffling, because I trim our street tree, because I'm not waiting for the city to trim it. But I do find it baffling. I mean, that's just what we do.
Just pretend you didn't hear that, everyone.
No, with a permit, and going through Carl, you know, but I do. I mean, that's something I do as a resident, and I have no problem helping the city out to trim my own tree. But I would feel really weird to have to trim these 4 other trees that are sitting in front of someone else's house. You know, that, I mean, it was, you know, that's a little strange here. I don't think we've had an application quite like this in terms of a view corridor where, you know, the applicant is now, you know, in 2022 took responsibility to get them trimmed, and it would be it is very expensive to get your trees trimmed. So that's what's strange here. I will say, when I pulled up to this house, I first tried to park in front of their house and then saw the signs where you need permit parking. So I parked on the other side of the street. But the reason why I wanted to park on their side is because of the trees. I wanted to park in the shade. It was a really hot day. So I look at trees as not just view, but as providing shade, and shade for when you're walking, and shade for, you know, in terms of the climate changing and so forth. So that's what makes this really hard. But that said, I don't have any, I'm not tied to these trees because I can't see where the applicant should be responsible for trimming their whole corridor when it's in front of someone else's house. So I am leaning towards, you know, the removal of 3, 4, 5, and 6. I never thought I would say that when I was out there. I never thought I would think that. But it just, you know, if the other neighbor had come, it just baffles me.
Yeah, thanks, Ann. So my thoughts are similar to what has been expressed. This is a tough one for me because there's some, as we've noted, there's some kind of strange aspects about this. We don't have the person here whose house is adjacent to these trees, so I take it by their silence that they're not really concerned about this one way or the other. And that's important to me, because clearly if there's a privacy issue, it doesn't seem to be a significant one. It doesn't appear to be a significant one. So the balance of this for me, in going there and seeing how the view's affected, clearly there's a view issue. We want to help that if we can. Is there a neighborhood character issue? That's what I'm kind of looking at to balance it. And when I really go out there and I look at this and look at the street, which I've lived here most of my life, so I know the street pretty well, Epping, right at the high school there. I really don't think those trees are going to be a loss to the neighborhood character. And that's kind of the dividing, balancing factor for me. I just don't see that 3, 4, 5, and 6 are really a problem with that. And so I'm leaning towards removing the trees, and again, that's unusual too, to not have another solution. So I'm thinking about, is there something we can replant that isn't going to grow so monstrously wide and high and ruin the Larson's view corridor? So do you have any thoughts about that?
No, we talked about it a little bit when we were on site, and I think we've all expressed that this is very difficult for us because we love trees and we rarely, as you know, approve to take them down. But I think we all agree that there's not anything else. There's really not an option because unless.
Well, actually, I do. I was wondering. So I know we're not supposed to talk about it.
Well,
however,
let me
there is a suit, and can that
Ms.
be?
Nye, let me just clarify that for you. You can talk about the hedge. You can't talk about it in terms of it being an item on our agenda.
Oh,
but
no.
It's part of the surrounding.
Well, I just was.
So it's not something we're going to rule on or recommend, but it
No,
doesn't
I'm
mean
not-
you can't mention the hedge.
Right, I'm mentioning more than the hedge. I'm mentioning that there is a lawsuit, and I was wondering if part of the lawsuit is part of where you can request that they, I think in their testimony, they said that part of them building their home with the planning commission is that they would keep the view corridor open. So isn't keeping the view corridor open asking them to trim their trees?
Stream, because Don's watching.
The street tree.
Is that a question to?
Yeah, that's a question to you.
The trees were planted a long time ago, so I don't believe the trees on the street were part of the planning commission's ruling.
Oh,
They were planted in 2008 or earlier.
with the same resident.
Trees, the pepper trees there,
Yeah.
I personally planted at a request from the neighbors prior to 2008, and that's why I showed you the Google Earth. They were not planted through planning commission's requirement. They were planted a long time ago.
Got it. You planted it by yourself.
No.
All right, well, does anyone want to make a motion with respect to this petition?
I will. I move on PC 57724 that we approve the application to remove four pepper trees, 3, 4, 5, and 6, located in the parkways on Epping Road, adjacent to 2100 Paseo Del Mar and 2101 Chelsea Road.
All right, is there a second?
I'm not sure yet. I have a go back. I'm so sorry.
Go ahead.
So you planted the trees, you had them planted,
I had them planted,
And-
the city planted them on a request.
and the request was by who?
Either the previous resident at 2100 Paseo Del Mar, I don't know if it was the same person that lives there now.
Oh, you don't know? Oh, okay. So it wasn't the same resident? It was not. It was not? Okay, got it. And they requested it because of what?
Because they wanted street trees?
Oh,
My motion still stands.
I second it.
All right, let's take a vote.
Committee Member Rossett,
Yes.
Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. That's a Right. Let's move to our next agenda item, which is item number 2, PCCTP-14-24. This is the concept plan for a habitat mitigation for West Basin recycled water pipeline project. The applicant is the Palos Verdes Golf Club, and David Stuelke is here. But first, is there a staff report?
Yes.
Not yet. Let's let everybody clear out for a second, who wants to.
We're having a little bit of an issue with it, but I think we may be able to get through.
Okay. About the whole school? Okay. Who are all these people?
That's funny.
Who's the one who's
You do staff report and then Dave's talking? Or do you go right?
I go first.
Yes, I'm sorry. He's the applicant. I can't speak English today.
Hold these agendas when they approve it.
Carl, what is the current technical problem that we're having? The live streaming?
No.
I can move it here, but I'm not seeing any kind of, does not react to anything else.
So we're still having a problem communicating with the screen?
Yes.
Should we unplug it here? When we
I
reset?
think we could keep on going until
Oh, okay.
I experience
Oh, okay.
a breakdown.
All right. Well, let's continue.
Okay. The Palos Verdes Golf Club requests consideration of a habitat restoration concept plan for a change to Parklands application pursuant to the Parklands use policy and the change to Parklands application guidelines. The City of Palos Verdes states in coordination with the Palos Verdes Golf Club received a grant from the West Basin Municipal Water District to implement the West Basin Recycle Water Pipeline Project. As part of the grant, habitat mitigation of 0.85 acres is required in order to offset impacts to the existing native habitat. This is the site, one of the sites, the 0.85. The goal of the change to Parklands application process is to create an orderly procedure by which residents or groups can request approval to modify, alter, or enhance natural habitat, pathways, public trees, and vegetation in the Parklands, as provided in the Parklands use policy adopted by Resolution R14-18. The city's goals are to maintain the parklands for public use, manage parklands in a manner to sustain the beauty created by the parklands, respect the reasonable expectation of privacy of the adjacent residents, and provide limited active uses and open space for the community and users. Concept plans are conceptual descriptions of moderate to large projects involving volunteer or contract labor, significant alteration of existing conditions, and projects requesting funding for materials or use of staff to implement the project. The Palos Verdes Golf Club is submitting 2 concept plans for 2 sites in the Malaga Dunes, of which both are west of holes 15 and 16. The sites are next to each other. The scope of the work is to install a native plant restoration for both sites. This would be the 0.5 acre from the dunes, looking at Paseo del Campo. The circles are around the signs that we posted, and the area extends further than we could see, but the trees would block the view. The Malaga Creek and the Olmsted Creek are to the south, and the Valmonte Trail is adjacent to the sites. Neither site will interfere with the walking trails. The Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy has provided and prepared a habitat restoration plan that specifies the plants, irrigation plans, and the schedule of activities. The Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy is Palos Verdes Golf Club's partner and will be responsible to implement the plantings and irrigation plan, as well as maintenance activities that include weed removal. The Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy has conducted meetings with the South Bay chapter of the California Native Plant Society and the Palos Verdes South Bay Audubon Society. And additionally, they have talked to with support of PBE residents that would like to help as volunteers. It's indicated that there's going to be no grading or tree removals in order to preserve the natural features of the Malaga Dunes. There are no homes closer than 300 feet, and the restoration projects are at the lower elevation, and so they will not be seen from the street. Screening vegetation also exists that will make the sites out of view for most. Trail users will be the only ones who will see the project, and all trails will remain open. So this is one of the trails that goes to one of the sites, so it's a rather difficult trail. The Malaga Dunes are frequently used by transients and homeless visitors, which will be minimized, and fire safety will be improved by the reduction of flashy fuels that ignite easily. The neighborhood character will only be improved, and no signage is proposed. Here's another example of some of the activities that go out there. You can see a skateboard and 2 dismantled bikes. The project has a 5-year term for installation and maintenance and monitoring with reports. Project cost will be approximately $40,000 per location. The Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy will be responsible for the .80 site, and the .85 will be maintained by the Palos Verdes Golf Club staff if the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy is not contracted for this. No city funds are requested. The project is planned to start in the fall of 2024 and should be in a maintenance phase by 2025 with conclusion in 2028. The project will be monitored regularly by the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. So this is one of the notice signs, and this is another notice sign by the street. This is just indicating that we posted it heavily so that everybody was aware. You can see the 2 signs in this slide that were visible for the people on the trails and from the street. The Valmonte Trail is right below where the sign is. This is the .8 site from the Malaga Dunes. It looks smaller, but it's not much. It's just the perspective that we have here. The concept plan, if approved, is required to be returned to the Parklands Committee with a proposed plan that will be more detailed for Parklands Committee review. The proposed plan becomes the final plan with approval from the City Council, and then the project can move forward. The Parklands Committee will consider the Parklands use policy and the change to Parklands application guidelines in the review of a concept plan for change to Parklands. The recommendation is to approve the concept plan and direct the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy and the Palos Verdes Golf Club to prepare a proposed plan that considers the comments of the Parklands Committee and directions provided by staff. And that would conclude the staff report.
All right, thank you, Carl. Do we have any questions of staff? Well, I'll start it off if no one wants to. Carl, so it's my understanding, I know we'll hear from Stokey, but this is just a concept phase we're in now, and then we're going to have to get more detailed than this.
Yes.
Right, okay. So in concept, do you see any problem with the funding that method proposed? Is that likely to work?
Yes, it seems like it's a very good project. I'm not sure if the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy is here, and they can speak to it, and we have a few more slides past this one that they can speak to some of the other more particulars.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of staff before we hear from the applicant?
Two. Just to be clear, though, you mentioned that the City of Palos Verdes Estates doesn't have to put any money into this. In perpetuity, there is no money that the city's going to have to budget to take care of this or to for any kind of maintenance or anything?
That's correct.
Nothing.
It's supposed to be able to take care of itself after 5 years.
Great.
And there are plans that maybe there's going to be more projects that would facilitate more restoration.
Good. Lastly, they do mention that the choice of the plants that work with an urban forester. Is that you, or is that another?
No, that's somebody that they will be hiring.
Okay. Will you have a voice in approving this selection?
I imagine I would have some input.
Okay. And I don't know if that's important to us, or if that's important to you, Ted?
I think they're very qualified
Okay.
To do the project, and they've been doing this, and I would probably be listening to them.
Okay, great. Good. I just want to make sure. Okay.
All right, anything else for staff?
Questions?
I have one other thing. There has been other development in this area because, I don't know if it was 20, 25 years ago, those stairs were put in. It has a gate at the top. You know, it's right on the street. Who did that?
I think I was not here when that happened, but it was done through the city.
Was it like,
I think it's a storm drain type facility.
so when I remember when I was here, it was, you could easily open the gate, you know, it was a locked gate, you easily open the gate, there was a gate on both ends, you walk down the stairs, and there was a nice trail that went out, it was very well maintained, and now, there's nothing, you know, now it's totally overgrown, so that's getting to what Susie was asking. Someone approved it, and now it's just, you couldn't even tell it was there. Right, it's all overgrown.
I believe it's somebody else's facility.
Oh, but we don't know who.
I think it.
And they won't touch it
I think
because,
it's like Public Works, Sanitation Department, not Sanitation.
okay, well,
Department.
anyway, I would just,
It's a storm drain that goes down to the stream.
it's what I was
Water comes
thinking,
off the
yeah, well, okay. All I'm suggesting is it seems like there should be, maybe in terms of this concept, that there should be a follow-up in terms of if that's going to be impacted by their concept design. Because it's right on the edge, right?
It's in between the first site. It's in the middle.
Oh, it's in the middle, oh. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Oh, so it's not incorporated. I thought it was in the
From the
first-
picture,
I thought it was
I
in
can
the
see-
.85.
Let's see if I go back.
I thought it was in the .85.
You see where that cedar tree is, right
Yeah.
next to the circle? Well, that's where
Yeah.
the stairs are, and it goes further to the east.
I thought it was,
Oh, we have another slide.
okay, anyway, it's just that it looked like it was incorporated, you know, from where the signage is, so it just seems that maybe they should look at it.
Those are the two sites.
Yeah, yeah, but,
And the staircase, you can see, is right where they're .085. That's where the staircase is.
yeah, so it's in it.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying that they're going to have to talk to whoever did it, right?
I'm not sure if anybody wants to provide access to that other than the people that maintain the lower area of it.
Anyway, that was just a concern because it was really nice for a long time, and now it's totally overgrown, like someone forgot about it. So
All right. Thank you. Why don't we hear from the applicant? Mr. Stocky, good to see you.
Yeah, good evening, Parklands Committee and staff. Yeah, just wanted one quick clarification. So two things I want to point out. The first one is the restoration plan is not a concept, in our opinion. It's actually the details that you see beyond those pages have all of the varietals and the types of plants, shrubbery, everything that's going to be in there for the mitigation and going forward, which I'm sure Chris can speak to much better than I can. But we didn't think that this was just a concept, so I don't know if we got that wrong, Carl, but we felt that the information was more than adequate to be able to make a decision on this so we could get going on this project. And then to back it up, so we, PV recycled water project started maybe 10 plus years ago, and part of our contract and agreement, and we are supplying a $700,000 gift back to West Basin to do the PV recycled water project. This is part of the contractual agreement, the 0.85 acres, so we're required to do it, and that's why we partnered with the Land Conservancy. And member here, Tom Melberg, is really the one that was the catalyst with our golf course superintendent back 10 plus years ago to kind of put this all together. So Tom's here for us this evening, and just want to make sure we acknowledge him because he's done such a great job to bring that recycled water to the peninsula, and we're very excited to have that. So we're just trying to fulfill our contractual agreement, and we wanted to hire the experts and brought on the Land Conservancy. So hopefully you guys had a chance to review the plan rather than just the concept. So if I got that wrong, I don't want to step on any toes, but we're really looking for an approval or a recommendation from the Parklands Committee to City Council.
So the process, though, is a concept plan has to be submitted first to go to the next step. It may stay exactly the way it is unless the Parklands Committee has other needs or direction. Staff doesn't have any issue with the plan as it is.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. And it's my first go at this, aside from some trees that we talked about a month ago. So if that's the process, we'll follow the process.
All right.
Chris, do you want to have a few words?
Yeah, thank you, David.
Yeah, Chris Sarabia, Conservation Director with the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. We're happy to partner with the golf course as well as with the city on this project. We prepared the plan. I prepared the plan. This is a great site to do a mitigation project. It fulfills all the grant requirements for the Purple Pipe project, the recycled water project, and so we're here to assist the golf course in kind of keeping this moving forward. Happy to answer any questions on the restoration. We've done a lot of these restoration projects all over the peninsula. I've worked with the Conservancy for 15 plus years, and we've just done a lot of work. So happy to adjust if you see any issues, but we think it's a sound plan, and it's ready to hit the ground running. We got a shovel-ready plan, basically ready to roll.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant?
I just have some comments.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say that I was so fortunate to have the opportunity to walk these sites with David and Chris and Adrian Mohan on Tuesday, and with Carl. And the knowledge, and I think that's why Carl's being humble here, because the knowledge that Chris has is like, awesome, so.
Thank you.
And he could tell every little native plant that was buried under some non-native. So it was very, very well done. So I agree. I think this is more, I thought when we were walking through it, it seemed much more than a concept versus a plan. So I had no problem with it and think that we're very fortunate to have you partner up and also use the recycled water. I think that's, it's all great. The reason that I had this opportunity to do is because I was in touch with Adrian about doing grants. So they got this grant through the West Basin, and if this is successful, which I have no doubt it will be, have the opportunity, we can work with them to do other grants, not only here with Malaga Cove Dunes, but other places. So I think this is a great partnership with the golf course, with the Land Conservancy, and with the city.
All right. Ms. Rossick, do you have any comments?
No comments. It's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh, and I don't either. It looks like it's pretty detailed, and it looks like it's ready maybe to go to the city council and take it to the next step. So do we want to have, are there any other speakers about this in the public? I don't have any cards. Okay.
Well, I can make the motion.
Yeah, go ahead.
I make the motion that we proceed with this. It's called a concept plan, but PCCTP 1424, and approve it.
I second that. Shall we have a roll vote?
Committee Member Rossett,
Yes.
Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our next item, which is item number 3 on our agenda. And this is PC 581-24. It's an application to trim as low as possible 3 groupings of lemonade berry shrubs located on the bluff edge across from 1640 Paseo del Mar. And do we have a staff report? Oh,
I believe we're on number 3,
yes.
and I believe that's the...
Stephen Prado.
That's what I just read was number 3.
He's not on number 3.
Oh, you're not? Oh, okay.
number four.
That's number 4 that seems
That's
to be
number
on
4
the
to us.
screen.
This is number 3.
No, number 3 to us is the lemonberry shrubs.
Not on the agenda, but
Maybe they switched it. Yes, the lemonade berry shrubs.
We'll have to get to a different screen here. So the request tonight is
Here we
to trim
go.
as low as possible 4 groupings of lemonade berry located on the bluff edge across from 1640 Paseo del Mar. The reason for the application is an ocean view enhancement. The main view area is from the front of the house. In considering view applications, when views are or becoming significantly obstructed, the Parklands Committee shall respect the tree management policy. To the greatest extent practical, strive to preserve or enhance scenic views from the main view area of a residential structure. The main view area is from the rooms at the front of the house. Part of the view is being reduced, but not significantly, by the 4 groupings of lemonade berry. This would be the lemonade berry that's directly in front, and you can see the 2 groupings on the left and the small grouping on the right. This is a close-up of the small grouping that's to the south as much as possible, the one that's directly outside of the house, and the grouping that's going towards the Queen's Necklace and the coastline. Lemonade berry can be trimmed and maintained at a lower height without harm to the shrub, but the lower the cut, the more rapid sucker growth will grow. Cutting into large diameter wood at to trim as low as possible is not recommended. Cutting the shrubs to 36 inches in height is as low as staff would recommend. The Parklands Committee is to respect the existing neighborhood and not significantly alter the unique feeling of a particular neighborhood. The character of the bluffs is the lemonade berry shrubs. The shrubs extend down the cliffs and reduced most of the erosion where they are established. The privacy is to be respected, but the privacy will not be affected by trimming the shrubs. Public safety. The shrubs provide erosion protection and a safety barrier for the pedestrians and bicycle riders using the bluff top trails, but trimming them lower will not change that. The options available to the committee tonight is to approve the request to trim the 4 groupings of lemonade berry to 36 inches in height and approve the conditions of approval included below. And you'll notice in the conditions of approval, we have some highlighted bullets that would restrict vehicles on the bluffs, and the trails need to be open while the work is happening, and the trimmings would be removed from the site or spread and chipped to not exceed 2 inches. You could deny the request to trim the 4 groupings of lemonade berry shrubs as low as possible or provide alternative direction, and that would complete the staff report.
Thank you, Carl. Do we have any questions of staff?
I have just a couple. On the conditions, I noticed the general conditions, number 9 says $500 goes into the tree bank, and then number 10 says stump removal required, so that would come off?
Yes, there would be no removal.
We wouldn't require that, okay, of the, someone in a letter had mentioned that taking this down to this level would, I guess, endanger some of the animals in that living in that vegetation. Do you experience, or do you feel that that's a possibility? Or?
You know, I think that the lemonade berries extend all the way down to the ocean or close to the shore, and that there's plenty of habitat left, and it would be a small amount of trimming or habitat that they would be removing, and they would grow back rapidly. When I was out there, I did not notice any creatures moving around, but I'm sure they're there.
Yeah. Okay, those are my questions.
I have, so along the coast there, where there's no houses, where it's just the bluff, there's many more groupings of lemonade berry shrubs and of various heights. And I'm just curious, has the city ever trimmed these?
Not to my knowledge. At one point in time, when people would ask, it could be approved, but things have changed dramatically in the city as far as accountability, and when staff can say yes to something and it became an issue, that had to be approved by the Parklands Committee. But the city would not have funds to be able to be trimming the bluffs.
But I also noticed when we were walking through that there was someone had cut down all the mustard greens or whatever other shrubs, not shrubs, but weeds that were growing. Was that the city that does that?
Yes, that's the city.
Okay, so the city does go through in terms of a maintenance of the weeds and stuff, but it doesn't touch this shrub.
Right, all it does is take the weeds down up to the bluff edge.
Right.
And it's not, we did not write in the contract that they were to trim the shrubs. Obviously, that would have increased the cost of maintenance. And that was not the purpose of the landscape maintenance contract.
Right. And so where I do see the shrubs, I mean, it is beautiful when you look over the cliff. And I mean, if it wasn't for them, that cliff could erode so much more, right? So it's definitely helping the erosion. But do you think it also helps the stability of that cliff, of the cliffs, to have it on the top of the cliff?
Yes, but the height of the bush is not going to affect.
It's more the roots.
It's the roots.
Right. But
There's
it's
some
like getting what's,
watershed.
yeah,
The more foliage on top, the more watershed, but by the time the rains come back, they'll probably have grown back.
that's right. Yeah.
So this is a very-
So this applicant said that he's trimmed them before. He thought he had done it with a permit, but you didn't have evidence of that. But do you see evidence that they've been trimmed before, or any of the other shrubs have been trimmed before? I mean, in the last,
There are
say,
some
5 years?
berries on the bluffs that are taller.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take his word for it that he's trimmed them before. It doesn't look like that, but we don't have any records of any permits that were issued for that.
All right, so 36 inches, are you done, Ann?
Yeah.
Okay, 36 inches is the lowest you would recommend.
Yes.
All right, and how quickly are they going to grow back to their current height if we do that?
Maybe 6 months?
Okay.
Oh, no, not to their current height. They'll grow maybe a foot or two, but they're going to grow slowly.
And what happens if you cut them below 36 inches?
Then they send up more suckers. They're going to try to recover. It's like a tree. The lower you cut it, the more it's going to sucker. And the suckers are going to try to grow as quickly as possible to capture the sun, to photosynthesize.
So that means the more you chop it, the quicker it grows.
Right, it's like your hair.
Yeah, not my hair. Let's be clear about that. Any other questions of staff? All right, let's hear from the applicant, if they're here. Mr. Prado?
Hi. Thank you, Parkland Committee. I'm Steve Prado. I own 1640 Paseo and had submitted the application to have the lemonberry bush trimmed. The last question here was kind of like, has it been trimmed before? Yes, it has been trimmed before, twice. I purchased the house in 2011, and I used one of the, I believe there's 3 approved people for Palos Verdes Estates that do trimming. I, came home from work, said, hey, I'd like you to, lower this. They said, we need to go to the city, we need to get a permit, and, then we can do it. I said, okay, and came home from work, and it was done, type of thing. I was told the big issue was not putting brush down the cliff, and so they used a bucket truck, they said, and had one person, trim, and then they would throw the brush back onto the bluff, and then there'd be another person that would put that in a shredder or a truck and or a mulcher or a truck, and then haul it off. So I think it was probably done, we finished remodel in 2013, so it was probably done 13, 14, probably again, thinking just around COVID time, so before COVID, like a 2018, just for fair disclosure. I checked my receipts, I don't have anything. At that time, the applicant wasn't, or the homeowner wasn't required to submit the application, so the trimming service did that on my behalf. And so I came down to get it done again. It's, like I said, it was probably around 2018, and we hadn't trimmed because before, when we were in La Nina and we were in the drought condition, the lemonberry bush didn't grow very much. And then when it switched back to El Nino and we got the rains, then the bush really took off. And it doesn't look that's the smallest of the 4 croppings, but the largest one there, that's actually close to 10 feet tall. So that would be, the ceiling height. And so I had requested to, the company that I had asked to do it, had just said trim it as low as possible. I had sent Carl, Mr. Moritz, an email and asked if we could trim it into a hedge, something around 2 to 3 feet tall. So that was my request. And I'm just looking to trim the bush, not to affect the root structure in any way, so it wouldn't be like removing a tree or removing any part of the bush. The root structure would be 100% intact, and has noted the roots or the bush goes all the way to the shoreline, to the coastline, which is 150 feet down the bluff. So there's significant root structure there, and I agree I wouldn't want to remove it only because it does stabilize the bluff. I'm not familiar with the budding, or if we trim it to 2 feet, then it's going to make more roots or make more buds and get bigger. I'm not urban forester, so I don't know about that. Mine was more of just an aesthetics. I don't see any animals being harmed or anything. If there are, most of the animals that are there used to be a fox, but the fox passed away, I believe, a year or two ago. Most of them are cottontail rabbits, which are 6-8 inches tall. Not 2 feet would be 24 inches, 3 feet 36 inches. So just looking for something in that height. So any of the animals that live in there would not be affected by basically a haircut of the tree. I'm just looking to take down the top of it, not, like I said, not touch the root structure. I am offering to obviously pay. I'm not asking for the city to expend funds to do it. And if approved, I request that maybe there could be an amendment or something that the trimming could be authorized on a subsequent basis versus going through the application process and the expense and the time and the public hearing part of it as well. So with that, thank you very much, Parkland Committee and staff.
All right,
and
thank
I'm
you
happy
very
to
much.
answer any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? No. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pryor. Do we have some more speakers on this application? Okay. I have 2 cards, and we've got Tracy Windass and Jane Ma.
Tracy Wines.
Wines, pardon me.
That's okay.
And you should have 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Take it away.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Wines, and I grew up in PV. I'm here tonight to represent my mother, Myrna Fletcher. She is 88 years old and unable to attend the meeting. I called ahead to make sure I could speak on her behalf. These are her comments. We built our home at 1648 Paseo del Mar 55 years ago and have raised our family here. It has been a blessing to see the ocean and cliffs every day of my life. I'm very concerned about the proposed removal or extreme trimming of the shrubs for many reasons, and here they are. 1, the shrubs are beautiful to look at from my porch, and visitors even take photos next to them. 2, cottontail bunnies live in the shrubs, and also the wrens that I feed in my backyard. 3, the shrubs are a buffer to keep people from falling off the cliff. 4, over the years, parts of the cliff have slid down to the ocean, but the shrubs help prevent soil erosion. 5, they require no maintenance or water. Thank you for letting me share my comments with you tonight, Myrna Fletcher and Tracy Wines. Jane?
Okay, thank you.
My name is Jane Ma. I'm living 1632. The brushes, I think
I'm sorry, you're going to have to speak up.
they're very beautiful. I don't want to cut them. It's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want me to explain what she said?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jane Ma lives at 1632 Paseo del Mar, and she thinks the shrubs are very beautiful and likes to look at them every day, and she hopes that you maintain them as they are.
All righty, great, thank you. Okay. All right. Anybody want to start it off at your thoughts about this petition?
I'll start.
Susie?
I support trimming them. I think I walk that trail a lot, and one of the nice things is being able to see down to the ocean. I think that's wonderful, and we're not removing the shrubs, and they're going to grow back. But I think bringing them down to enhance the view is a request I would support.
Okay. And Ann, do you have some thoughts on this?
You know,
And you don't have to.
I do. No, I do.
You don't have to.
No,
It's
I
up
do.
to you.
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
No, you don't.
So the issue here is Mr. Prado is selling the house. So he's not like he's going to continue to live there. And so the only issue that I have is, and I did bring it up with him when I visited, is if we were to agree to trim, and in order to keep whatever height we trim it to, you would have to, at least according to what Carl is saying, you'd have to do it at least annually, if not even more. So if he was still living there, then we could say, oh yeah, we approve it, and you'll do the due diligence to make sure that it's permitted, and you don't have to pay a fee, and you just do it annually. But he's selling the house, so you can't say to the seller or to whoever buys the house, oh, you can do it. So I don't think we have that ability to do that. I think if that person wanted to have them trimmed, they'll have to come before us again, right? I mean,
Why?
I think it's it's not Mr. Prado. He's selling the house.
Right, but we don't know. He might not sell the house for 5 years. I mean,
I think he's selling the house.
well, maybe, but I still don't understand. I mean,
I'm just saying, if
the
he's
new-
not at the house.
right, but the new resident doesn't have to trim the bushes.
That's
if they
right,
don't want
that's right. So I'm just saying for us to, yeah, we can just make the caveat, if he's still at the house, that he doesn't have to come. So I have no problem with that, but I don't think you can make the caveat that the next owner, who is new to the, I don't know, I just don't think you can do that to a new owner. I've never seen us do that before, but that's just, I'm just responding to what he said. I mean, I do want to say that and we have done this before, if we approve a trimming, and we have said, once we approve it, that person does not have to come before the Parklands every time to get an approval, that they just have to go through Carl, and it's a free permit, and they just trim, right? But I'm just saying, this is a little different. That's all I'm saying. That said, I know Mr. Prado wants to trim below the 36, but I would not want to go below the 36. And I know your recommendation is the 36. So, I mean, he has a fabulous view already. And when I look at the other shrubs along, they are a little taller than his, but they're not much taller. I mean, I just think with the dry summers that we have, even if you have a good rain during the winter, they're not going to grow really tall. So, but that said, he is selling the house. He wants it to look good, and I have no problem if he wants to trim them, but that it can't be below 36.
Well, I think that's what is recommended by Carl.
That's what Carl recommends, but that's not what he would desire. That's all.
All right, does anyone want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll move that we approve PC 581-24, the application to trim 4 groupings of lemonberry lemonade berry shrubs located on the bluff edge across from 1640 Paseo Del Mar at the recommended 36 inches as recommended in the staff report.
I second that. Shall we have a roll call vote?
Committee Member Rossett,
Yes.
Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. So we're approving it as to 36 inches. I think that's clear, hopefully, in our motion.
Were you intending on including the conditions of approval?
I didn't see them.
You had listed,
And I
that's something you want to change.
forgot to address them.
I don't think I heard that.
Well, do you mean removing the $500 per tree and the stump removal? That shouldn't have been,
Well, the general conditions, and one of the general conditions was that no vehicles were allowed to drive on the bluffs, and the trail must be remain open during the work.
oh,
The trimming shall be removed from the site, or can be chipped to not exceed 2 inches.
I see. Okay, I'll amend my, my motion to include item 11, 12, and 13 on general conditions in the motion. Does that suffice?
And
I think that all the general,
Well, except for you have to remove 9 and 10.
and the way the general conditions work is that whatever applies.
Okay,
So there's many times the general conditions, there's things in there that don't apply, but there's many things that still do apply.
yeah, I just wouldn't want him to be stuck with $500 for that, or to have to go in and remove stumps and things. Okay.
Absolutely.
But anyway, all of the general conditions, that
the
makes-
general conditions that apply
Yes.
are added to the motion. And with that, I second the motion. And let's have a vote.
Committee Member Rossett,
Yes.
Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
As a point of clarification, for trimming in the future, for subsequent trimming, how is that to be handled?
We're not ruling on that as part of this motion, as I understand it. I think this is sufficient for today in terms of what was on the request, and I think that's all we're ruling on today.
Okay, so,
But I do think, and Carl, you should speak to it, that in that we ruled on this one, if the new owner comes to you and you see that this one has been approved, you could approve it without it coming to the Parkland, right?
No,
You don't think so?
I wouldn't assume that. I would assume that it'd be a new resident, that they would come before you, and they would ask for the permission, and then they would be given the permission, possibly, the same way Mr. Prado did. But it wouldn't be something that was attached to the ownership of the house.
Right.
Or in someone's different name than his name, which he was the applicant.
And I think your concern is that if you still own the house in a year, do you have to come back and
say I
do
take
that?
take the house off the market, and yeah, a year from now, they've grown a foot, or 2 years from now.
He has to
they've
go
grown-
through this process again.
Do I have to go through the whole
He wouldn't have to go
application?
through the,
As long
Well,
as
if he
it's
still owns
Mr.
it.
Prado, we could approve it.
yes, as
Right,
long
right.
as you.
Okay,
Right, and that's why
That was what I was saying.
that's why I
As long as you-
wanted, yeah.
okay, that was the part I was confused on. I just wanted clarification there on.
So maybe you should amend the.
Okay, we're gonna,
Right.
let's
Let's amend
maybe
them.
the third time's the charm.
So if I amend the motion to the current resident, let me just make sure they're listening.
Why don't you add an addendum to the, well, why don't we do it,
Let me
let's
wait.
take it from the top.
I can always do that.
Yeah, well, we could talk about that. I think.
I can't hear.
You know,
Good idea.
Remind the applicant.
All right, so what?
I have to do
so-
it because I made it, so.
Okay,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
withdraw the motion that I made. I'd like to move that we approve PC 581-24, the application to trim to 36 inches, the three groupings of lemonade berry shrubs located on the bluff edge across from 1640 Paseo del Mar, to include the general conditions as outlined in the staff report. And this motion is, I guess, how would I word that? The applicant can annually trim the shrubs without coming back to the Parklands Commission for approval, as long as he is the owner of the property.
That works.
I second the motion.
Yay.
And, Mr. Chair, if I may, just as a reminder to the applicant, two things. This, as similar to the other items on the agenda, this has to go to City Council for final approval, this recommendation, and you may need an encroachment permit to actually perform the work. That's something you can call Carl after it goes to City Council. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
She's got to do roll call.
Go ahead. Please, thank you.
Committee Member Rossick.
Yes.
Committee Member Nye.
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right.
We're rolling.
Let's move to our final item on the agenda, which is item number 4, PC 580-24. This is an application to remove 4 trees and 1 shrub located in the public right-of-way and parklands adjacent to 841 Tyburn Road and plant 5 replacement trees. And is there a staff report?
Yes.
Please proceed.
And just as a note, the presentation is being a little weird.
Okay.
So bear with me.
I think all of us went out there and spent a lot of time, so that we still
This is an
need it.
application to remove 4 trees and 1 shrub located in the parklands and right-of-way adjacent and behind 841 Tyburn Road, and plant 5 trees. This is number 1 tree. It's a carob tree. This is 2 and 3, a carrot wood and a pomegranate. And then there's a little loquat tree. And this is a lavender starflower that's in the parklands. Once we defined the lines, it was in the parklands. The trees requested for removal are located at the rear of 841 Tyburn Road. Locations for the planting of the 5 trees are 2 in the parkway in front of 2709 Via Romera, and this is the second location, and 3 in the alley behind 2709 Via Rivera, or directly behind 841 Tyburn Road. The applicant's location is 2709 Via Rivera. And this is another location for the trees, I'm sorry. The reason for the application is the Ocean View Corridor and Sunset View Enhancement. Let's see. So this is the applicant's location at 2709 Via Rivera. In considering view-related applications, the Parklands Committee shall respect the tree management policy and, to the greatest extent practical, preserve or enhance scenic views from the main viewing area of a residential structure. The trees in the application are all healthy and structurally safe. The main view area of the structure at 2709 Via Rivera will be from the new dining room at the rear of the home. This is basically the same area that you saw the view, other than it's going to be closer to the property line and in line with the existing building. The view corridor is partially obstructed now by the 4 trees and 1 shrub, and will be more obstructed after the new addition is built. We do have some pictures of the ocean that you can see if you were looking from the house, but this tree is right now obstructing it, so you can't see this. So this would be furthest south, and this would be the furthest north. There's a little corridor over there, and this is directly over the backyard of of Tyburn Road. Just to explain, this is the house plan for 841 Tyburn Road when it was built. And it's probably hard to see, but there it says Lot D, and the circle down below says alley. And where the alley is right away, and where the Lot D is considered Parklands, and there's a Parklands area directly behind the house. Planting the 2 new trees in the parkland via Vera will not have any view impacts, so they're fine. The applicant is asking to plant Magnolia Little Gem, which is not the designated street tree. It's a St. Mary. It's a little bit different, but either tree is a fine tree. The character of the, so to further that, so you understand the location, the areas that are Lot D and Lot C are Parklands, and the alley is right-of-way. And you can see where the trees are there. And this would be the view, but this would be how that all works out with property lines. The character of the area is filled with trees. Trees in the alleys and parklands were never approved to plant, but appeared after yards were extended into the public land. Planting trees in the alley and path is not an action that was planned or approved by the city, as the pathways and alleys are access for utilities and residents. Maintenance of trees off the main paved streets become blocked by tree trunks and equipment can't access. Unpermitted planting of trees is a problem that sometimes interferes with utility wires, utility boxes, utility structures, and other residents' views. Planting new street trees, either the magnolias, will add to the neighborhood character. Respect of privacy is another criteria for the Parklands Committee, and privacy and screening will be reduced for 841 Tyburn Road with the removal of the trees. Privacy and screening for 841 Tyburn Road will be improved, but new redbud trees should not be planted in the alley, only the Parklands. Removal of the trees, with the exception of the carob, will not have any safety impacts, either negative or positive, to their location. The carob tree is very close to the house and would be considered an issue for the fire department, and removal of the carob tree would improve that fire safety for that home. The trees requested for the removal are not the designated street tree, but they're close. I'm not too sure if they would really care if they were Little Gems or if they were St. Mary's, but the designated street tree is a St. Mary, not a Little Gem. Let's see. So here's another understanding of the alley. This is all right-of-way. We're on the right-hand side of that red line, and in the rear where that cement is Parklands. This is the location of the little gem that's proposed to be planted, and this is another location where it's proposed to be planted. This is where they were asking to plant the redbud tree, which is in the alley, and this is another location for the redbuds, which are natives, in the alley. This is the view from the house. They would get more of a sunset view, but if that was gone, you saw the little blue behind it. This is the blue that's behind that carob tree. This is the lavender starflower, and this would be the view that's behind that. And this is the view to the right. The options available to the committee tonight is to approve the request to remove the 4 trees and 1 shrub, approve the planting of the 5 new street trees, and approve the conditions of approval listed below. Deny the request to remove the 4 trees and 1 shrub and plant 5 new trees, or provide alternative direction. And I would mention that there was a letter, a late correspondence that came to you from the residents at Tyburn Road, and that was asking for some consideration. And that would complete the staff report.
All right, do we have any questions of staff? Why don't I start off with this one? So, first of all, I want to make sure I am understanding everything. These trees, all of them that are requested to be cut are unpermitted or planted in an alley of parkland or right-of-way combined that was meant to provide access and is not a place where anyone's going to be approved to plant trees, assuming we didn't have the apparent encroachment that occurred.
That's correct.
All right. And you mentioned a safety issue. Is that the carob tree?
The proximity to the building?
Okay. All right. And clearly it will enhance their view to some extent. We saw that when we were there. And I guess another question is they want to replant some trees also in the alley. Isn't that something we just want to avoid?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. That's all the
alley should be clear.
Yeah, that's the only questions I have. Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, just to reiterate what Chairman Cooper said, this is clearly what is going on right now is a vegetative encroachment as defined by the Parklands encroachment management policy, correct?
Yes, and it's a little bit beyond because of the cement and the fence and the
structural too.
Structures that are there, but yes, it's all an encroachment into the right-of-way and the Parklands.
Okay. When did the property owner receive a notice of violation for this encroachment?
Recently.
Recently.
The whole neighborhood received notification.
Okay.
All the houses.
Are they incurring fines daily for not taking care of this?
That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
There's a number of the residents that have complied and moved their fence and taken out the walls and fences that were there.
Okay. I mean, because I think we can't dispute, this is clearly illegal, what's going on there in the Parklands. They don't control any of the resident doesn't control any of the Parklands.
Correct.
So, to Bob's point also, I don't think we would recommend planting trees in there since we can't. It's illegal to do that as well. So, okay. Those are more like my questions, but I have comments as we get to the end of it.
They can request to plant in Parklands. That would be a process.
I was under the impression we don't want to put anything in we keep Parklands clean or without any trees that we plant.
But people can come forward to request planting in Parklands with native plants.
Okay.
There is a policy for use of landscaping Parklands, and that would include some conditions.
Okay. All right, those are my questions.
So this, did this application trigger that you saw the encroachment, or you knew about the encroachment and then the application came?
We were aware of the encroachment a long time ago.
But, so the lines that I see when I walk, did that come after the application, or?
All of the surveys,
Yeah, the survey.
stakes and the lines, they were all, part of it was put down by the applicant to indicate where his property line is.
Right.
And I believe the other resident performed a survey. I'm not sure what the purpose was, but there was some flags that were placed afterwards to indicate the boundaries of Lot D, but it only identified one side of the lot. It was 20 feet deep. So it may be a little confusing.
Well, it is a little confusing, even in the picture, and I think even with what Susie was saying. So there's Parkland, which is more of a narrow strip, and then there's the right-of-way, which you cannot
Get
plant
back to
in
that.
at all, the alley, what you're calling the alley. Yeah, that's a good picture. So, so it's only in the Parklands that they can, and that's where they're showing their trees, but not in the right-of-way. So that's where, okay. I also wanted to say that,
Well,
I know it's not,
you have a question, because you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
make your comments later.
Oh,
but-
well, I
but this
did- I
is
did
just-
have-
We're
well,
just, you can make all the comments you want later, but can we focus, if you are focusing on another question to Carl?
well, I did have another question.
Go ahead.
So I know this is tied, this picture is tied to the applicant in terms of this, terms of their view, but is it tied to, because this right-of-way goes all the way around, is it tied to anything that happens to the
There's-
west of this picture?
There's other encroachments further down.
Yeah.
There's an alley that goes down to Paseo Lunado. There's a grass lawn next to
know.
the first house, and a tree that's been planted in the
Right.
middle of it.
But no one is suggesting any other tree removals?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Tell me again, Carl, just the trees that are proposed to be planted back in the alley area, or what are those?
Parklands.
In the Parklands, or in the right-of-way. It looks like they're in the Parklands, I guess, where they...
The way it looks, that they're all being proposed to plant in the right-of-way. So that would be part of the right-of-way.
That's not Parklands?
No, the Parklands would be further in. This is the outside portion.
Yeah.
So where that right-of-way on the top right in the diagonal is where I believe that circle is.
Hmm.
And this would be in the right-of-way too, because from that red line on the right, there's 20 feet of right-of-way, the alley, and after that, it's Parklands.
Okay.
Next to
All
the
right.
house.
And should we not avoid planting more trees in an access road? Isn't that...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure I'm thinking about it
There
correctly.
is a policy that we, for planting of native in Parklands, which you can consider if you thought that was appropriate.
We don't have to.
To mitigate some of the privacy impacts.
Right.
Can you ask them not to have a conversation?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions to staff? Or are we ready to hear from the applicant?
Let's see if I can get that PowerPoint.
Okay, here we go again. This is your
Here
final...
we go again.
Final try. Hold on a second.
Hold your breath. Let's see.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Again, my name's Alan Rigg. I'm helping Melinda and Michael with their application. Next slide, please. Again, I'll go through the specific findings in the tree management policy. Next slide, please. Hopefully this is a little bit clearer as well. There are 3 locations of vegetation that impact their views. The configuration of right-of-way and parklands is odd. And with groups 1 and 2, my assessment was they're in parklands, and group 3 being on right-of-way. Next slide, please. Here you can see the impacts of the views to the rear of their home, from their current kitchen and dining room, and from their future kitchen and dining room. Please note the views are impacted from both their current home and from the expansion. Next slide, please. The fence is partially removed in this picture between the boundary of the right-of-way and the parklands. Next slide, please. Group 1, as Carl mentioned, is a large carob tree. Next slide, please. Better tree, picture of it showing the nighttime impact. Next slide, please. Group 2 includes a bush and a small tree. Next slide, please. And finally, Group 3 is multiple trees. Not really sure exactly what they are, but Carl's explained them. Next slide, please. And the view impacts at night. Next slide, please. I think this is the meat of our discussion. Our proposal is to remove the subject trees and shrubs and plant 5 trees. We've seen the letter, and I've just spoken with the neighbors. We are not wed to having the 2 trees in the parkway on Villa Rivera. If it helps, and I know the heck they've been going through, I was involved with one of their neighbors with the encroachments, and we're willing to plant all 5 trees in the Parklands of a variety that they can work out with Carl. It's a shade tree that'll stay small, that'll give them privacy and in locations where they want them. So long as it helps them, and privacy is a two-way street, right? So if they're planted where it's the best privacy for them, it's the best privacy for us as well. So we would offer that to try to make this a win-win. Next slide, please. Back to the findings. Views are definitely impacted. Next slide, please. There's no real character with these trees that's being impacted. Next slide, please. As we mentioned, there is some privacy impacts, and we're willing to move all trees to the Parklands in locations as they want in order to hopefully increase privacy in the end, or at least make it not so bad. Next slide, please. There's no impacts on public safety. Next slide, please. And they're not the designated street tree. They're anything far from it. Next slide, please. We think the findings can be made. I think from the letter and from my discussion that the neighbors, this will make the best of a bad situation they're going through. And I would ask for the applicants, the property owners, to speak.
Dear Mr. Chair and members of the Parklands Committee, my name is Michael Lemus, and my wife Melinda and I own the property at 2709 Villa Rivera. We'd like to thank you for your time tonight and for reviewing our application for the trees, shrubs to be removed from the parklands and right-of-way adjacent to our home. We appreciate everyone taking the time to come look at the impacts to our views, their locations on the parklands right-of-way, as well as having the ability to answer any of the questions or concerns that any of you had. With me tonight, I have additional photos that I displayed during our showings that I'd be happy to leave with you if the committee, if it would be helpful to the committee. As we have come to realize, there are 2 issues here. The first issue is the impact to our views. There are 3 locations of vegetation that impact our views that have been identified in the presentation. As we understand it, the carob tree, number 1, can and will grow up to 40 feet in height and width if it is left as is. This would severely impact our views from main living spaces. If removed, the entire horizon and additional ocean views open up from our home. The starflower Brazilian pepper, number 2, is taking up what we call our A view, which looks down into Lanada Bay and where we have the most direct view of water from our home. If removed, it would preserve our A view from our property. The loquat, honeysuckle, and tree, number 3, blocks our entire view north. If removed, the entire bay and Malibu coastline can be seen from our home. All 3 of these locations provide the best views for sunsets from our property. The impacts to our home are from existing and future main living spaces. We are in the process of expanding our home, and as set up in our showings, the kitchen, living room, and family room will all open up to the backyard facing west. All 3 of these identified vegetations will severely impact our main living areas if left as is. The second issue presented here is the trees' locations being on Parklands Row and whether they were legally planted or native to the area. The trees have similarly been treated as private property as they were located behind a fence that is now in the process of being taken down. As presented, all 3 vegetation are in fact located in Parklands or in Row. It is for this reason, additionally, that we are asking for permission for all 3 to be removed, returning our Parklands and Row back to its native natural habitat. In closing, we propose to replace these trees, shrubs with 5 agreed upon acceptable varietals in locations that would enhance our aging urban forest and would also we would also do our best to provide our neighbor below with privacy and shade. Thank you for your time and consideration, Michael and Melinda Lemus.
All right, thank you very much. And we have one more speaker, I believe, on this item, which is Mr. San Juan, or Ms. San Juan? Ms. San Juan.
Thank you to the committee. Our neighbors have made it a little bit easier with the compromised position, so thank you.
Roll it. Go ahead, thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Elvira San Juan. I'm here with my husband, Carl Caterson. We live at 841 Tyburn Road, the subject property where the parking lands and alley is adjacent to. And those trees were there when we, and fence were there when we purchased the property in 2005. I think that was a question that I heard come up. And we have paid citations, and we're in the process of removing the fence. The survey will help us identify where the court should be cut off, so we're going to do that. In conversations with Carl and Enforcement Officer Cash, they were thinking those trees would stay because the carrotwood and the carob in particular, because they're nice specimens. They're really very beautiful. I understand the fire concern, especially with the carob tree. We have trimmed those trees in the past, so Member Nye, I'm right with you with residents paying for that cost, and even had a thank you note from the Leamses when they moved in that we trimmed them. So with the notice that that's Parklands, then some of that stopped. But I do think that there's an opportunity, for cost sharing is where we have been. So I appreciate the response from the applicant to address the privacy concern. The prior locations of 2 of the new trees would not have helped with privacy and shade. That's one of the pictures I send in shows the extreme amount of shade. And it is amazingly getting hotter back there with the global warming. We have some great hummingbirds in what we call the bee tree, because it's bees as well. So we're thinking that red bud tree will help the continuation of the hummingbirds, which I think are really key. So I appreciate the reconsideration by the applicant. We've tried to be good neighbors, and we look forward to that future relationship. And welcome to the city clerk, and thank you for taking that late letter. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, who wants to, does anyone have any comments about this petition? Ms. Rossick?
Sure. As we've defined, it's clearly a vegetative encroachment. It's illegal, all of it. Back a year ago, Chairman Cooper and I were tasked with reviewing the encroachments policy and determining how we can go forward with enforcing encroachments in the city. The city has over, I think, 200 known encroachments. We did that, and based on what we learned and what's been confirmed tonight, is this is clearly an encroachment. If we deny this application, I think we're setting a precedent in saying that it's okay to encroach on the parklands. You talked about putting other trees in the parklands. You can put those trees on your property. You know your property line, put the trees on your property. That's my feeling. I don't like to remove trees, but this is a clear encroachment, and it's been there for for 40 years. And what the city attorney said during the meetings was that it doesn't matter if it was 40 years ago, it's still an encroachment and it's illegal. So that's the discussion we have to have.
Okay.
I think you could be considerate in that, as far as I know, when I went, even the applicant didn't know their borders of their property. I mean, that's why he put the line there. I mean, he didn't know, and I'm hearing from their neighbor that they bought the property not knowing. I'm just saying.
And that's part of the problem in the city.
So that's what we have to consider, that it's not like.
But that's part of the problem with the city, with encroachments. It's encroachment into the parklands, which is the property of the city.
Yeah.
And there's a municipal code that governs what goes in that area.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think it's really great that they've come together to talk about it, I mean, it's not like either one of them well, not, at least not the applicant for sure, but.
I agree with that.
Right, that's all I'm saying. But that said, in the new letter that we got with the new picture, so I just want to be clear, so of the 1, 2, 3 trees that are, 2 are in the parkland and 1 is in the right-of-way, so you're just for moving the 1 tree, you're just suggesting, that's a question, are you just suggesting to move the 1, to move it from where they were saying they wanted to put it?
That's right.
You
Member
just
nine.
moved the X, right?
The X's and in the application, we're closer to Tyburn, so we're on the other side of the 1.
Right.
So they would not have screened the patio.
Right. And with your hardscape, just to, to contend with what Susie said, is that with your hardscape, it is hard to, you don't have a lot of land to plant trees on in terms of your.
We are going to embrace the openness.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, good. Okay. I mean, it's not like, at least when I was looking over, there was a lot of hardscape, so, yeah. Okay. In terms of this, in terms of accepting this, though, we're saying we want to remove the trees that you were talking about. But in terms of planting the trees, that doesn't have to necessarily be part of our approval here, right? Or when you remove trees,
You're correct.
it is
You
kind
can
of
make
two
the
separate.
motion any way you want.
Right, okay, just, the thing is, but the carob tree is not on the removal, right?
Yes, it is.
Or it is on the, oh, okay, it is on the removal. Okay. Even though you've been trimming it, right? But it is pretty close to your house.
Right, and there, on the slide 12 of the application, which, I don't know which one that is, Carl, you can see that you could trim the carob tree, and if you, as opposed to taking it completely down, because you'll just see our roof. So right now, the carob tree provides significant visual screening for our neighbors from the roof, which, since they are above us, they'll just look directly down on that.
Right. And what is your response to that, Carl? Is that,
Carob trees can be maintained at very low heights.
yeah,
But they would require, that would necessitate annual trimming.
by them? It's on their property, right?
No, it's on Parklands.
Oh, even, oh, okay, that's what I'm looking, it's so close to their house.
It's in Parklands. It wouldn't be trimming that the city would perform, and if it was to stay, the trimming of the tree, I believe, would be on the applicant.
Yeah,
This is his application. It's not
right,
Tyburn Road's application.
right.
If that's how you approve this, it wouldn't be for the applicant to maintain it for,
In other words, if we don't approve the removal and we say it's a
Right.
trimming, it's on the applicant.
it wouldn't
In-
go like
in
the
the-
application with Kirby, he would have had to been trimming the trees, not the adjacent resident.
If I may, if it is informative, I know I didn't talk.
No, I don't think we get to do that as a matter of procedure, unfortunately, although I certainly welcome anything you would have wanted to say. But my thoughts are, first of all, I'm very heartened to see that the neighbors are talking and working this out as reasonable people. That's great, and I want to have a solution that fosters that. I think from my perspective, taking out the trees, I do hate to take out the carob tree just because it's a magnificent tree, but the circumstances of it, I don't think leave us much of a choice. It's right in an alley that's meant for access. It's not, although they didn't intend it clearly, it's not something that the owners at Tyburn knew about, but it's a tree that shouldn't be there, as all the trees are. So it's...
You can't accept this.
Well,
That's incorrect.
I'm sorry.
That's incorrect.
Well, okay. Tell me why that's incorrect. I'm willing to ask you that.
It's not on Parkland.
It's not on the right-of-way.
That's right, it's not on the right-of-way.
It's on Parkland.
Chair Cooper,
Yeah,
the carob tree is located in Parklands,
okay, not right of way.
not right away.
I know that.
Right.
So what did I say
I
wrong?
think you said the alley, which would be...
Said
you
it-
meant-
Okay. Okay, pardon me.
He meant Parklands.
All right. I meant Parklands. But in any event, my bigger question is, what do we replant and where? Because I don't want to do anything that lessens the access, and yet I want to preserve the privacy of the San Juans. So that's something that maybe we can talk about and try to fashion the solution. I think, as Carl has said, planting the tree proposed by the applicant doesn't affect negatively the character of the area because it's similar to the street tree that's designated, so that's not an issue.
Can you put up
my-
your picture?
Yeah,
Can you, of the 4 trees?
yeah.
Can you put your picture up of the 4 trees that are in, that way we're all on the
We
same?
have this application up. That's the carob.
Yeah, but you had your nice drawing where Parkland
All right,
right
there's the
away
carob.
and
Oh,
trees
you're
that are
looking for
coming out.
that.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
Where's the 4th?
my issue with this is that it's illegal. And if we deny the application, we're setting a precedent that says that residents, regardless of if they knew or not, are okay with having an encroachment that we've already given a violation to, an encroachment into the parklands. So the next time somebody comes up, or we try to go, or the code enforcement officer goes to somebody with a pool, there's nowhere to stand because we've approved an encroachment into the parklands. And from what I understand from the municipal code, that's not acceptable. If I'm wrong, let me know. But those are full-on encroachments. They have a property line. If they want trees, then they put them on the side of their property line. And those aren't considered city trees, right? Those are private trees.
If they're on public land, they're public trees.
If they're on their property line,
If they were on private property, they'd be private trees.
they'd be their trees. But when they come into the parklands, which I don't think we should get in the habit of putting trees in parklands, we can't take care of the number of trees we have now. So it doesn't seem like we have a lot of legally we have a lot of options. That's my opinion. You're a lawyer. You might be able to state this better, but everybody has a property line, and you're supposed to stay within that property line. It's unfortunate that the previous owner didn't, and they didn't, I don't know if the city gave them a violation at that point. I doubt it, but they did, or you don't know?
No, it would be so long ago that no.
Right. It's
Too long ago.
2005.
Too long
But
ago.
Yes or no?
the city council has charged us with being more aggressive with encroachments. So the first one that comes up, if we say, well, no, let's just let them stay and trim it back, who are we helping?
Yeah, so, like, as I was saying, and I don't disagree with your point, Ms. Rosick, I think I'm favoring cutting the trees that should never have been there, and in some cases, propose a hazard slightly. So, but what I'm most interested in is what we replant or what we approve in our petition, or do we just want to grant the application? Well, let me just say, I don't think we should grant the application to the extent it request replanting trees in such a way that,
In the Parklands.
in the Parklands. So, Ann, do you have a suggestion as to?
Well, I mean, this is, it's not as straightforward. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. When I was trying to walk this right away and found, a trampoline in my way, and the owner had to come out and say, oh, no, you were supposed to be able to walk through. Well, it looked like a grassy area to me, I thought, I mean, that one, they definitely didn't want anybody walking beside their house. So that was a big encroachment. And this one, the reason why I'm not as thinking it's, black and white here is that their house goes right up to their property line. How that was okayed, I don't, I know I have a 3-foot, where I can't do hardscape. I mean, it just, and they bought the house, and I don't know if anyone.
That's not your concern.
I know, but I'm just a little worried that.
And that's not what we.
I know, but I am concerned that they're going to have, unless they build a really high fence, when someone's walking through the alley or the Parklands, no buffer. So, and also no shade. I don't know. Do you consider that? Can you consider that, Carl, or?
Normally, when we've had to do fire safety weed abatement and people have said that we've taken their privacy and their shade away, our usual response is, well, you can plant on your own property to restore your shade and your privacy. But the Parklands does have the ability to approve plantings in Parklands, but there's more to it. It's like a variance. There has to be specific reasons why they have to go into Parklands to do it, and there's no other option for them to do it. It's going to be a hardship. It's going to be a financial hardship. It's going to be something that if you approve it, everybody else can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So you probably would want to use the hard, fast rule that if they would like to plant trees, they should plant them on their private property.
Yeah. Anyway, it hurts.
As I've said 20
Yeah.
times in this meeting today, I don't like to take trees down. I hate it. I hate it, and I feel bad about that. It's a nice tree. But I don't know what other option we have, because they've been given a violation of an encroachment by the city, correct? On all of it. And to abate the encroachment, you have to remove what's there, right?
Yes, except the city is a little bit soft-hearted about trees.
I know that. But vegetation, I know in certain areas is versus like a pool, but it's still encroaching on Parklands property, which is the Parklands property, according to the municipal code, is a property of the city. So it already is possibly prohibiting emergency vehicles from getting down there. I mean, that's the reason there's a property line. You have a property line because you stay inside of it. So I know I'm being really hardline on this, but to me, it's a precedent. If we say, oh yeah, let's just leave them there, trim them down, let's be happy, then the next people that come up, why is the next one then different? I'm trying to rationalize that.
All right, do I hear a motion, or are we not ready for that?
I'm not quite ready for that.
Okay.
Okay. So, the removal of the trees is paid by who?
The applicant.
Even though it's on,
Yes, it's the
see,
applicant.
that's a little strange here as well, in other words.
Well, the city wouldn't be.
Well, the city wouldn't be doing it, and it's the applicant's application, so they get the honor, the responsibility of forming whatever they get approved.
And they're ready to step up and do that, by all accounts. So, again, the only thing I want to confirm, because my position is I think we should grant the application to remove the trees. I'm just trying to fashion another part of the solution that perhaps, as far as the replanting, I mean, a couple of the trees are in the front of their house, so those don't really have any bearing on the neighbors. But I'm just trying to think about how we can do something that perhaps helps with the privacy of the folks on Tyburn. Of course, I know they also have the option of just planting trees on their own property. So there's that. There's that. And I appreciate the fact that they didn't cause this situation and they're now in the middle of it. Definitely appreciate it. But I guess what I would do is I would move to grant the application, which is PC 58024, to remove the 4 trees and 1 shrub located in the public right-of-way in Parklands, adjacent to 841 Tyburn Road. And I would further grant the trees requested to be planted by the applicant, replanted, except any that are in the Parklands or right-of-way.
I'll second that.
All right, are we ready for a roll call?
Committee Member Rossick?
Can we discuss it a little bit?
If
you want to discuss it?
If you want to discuss
I just want to be clear what you're saying, because there's another caveat here where Carl was recommending the St. Mary magnolia versus the little gem. And there is, I had to do some due diligence to look it up. There is quite a bit of difference between them in that the little gem is considered more of a dwarf and a very slow-growing plant, even though eventually we'll get to maybe the same height as the St. Mary's, but many, many years later, whereas the St. Mary's can grow fairly large faster. So you were saying the St. Mary's is the street tree of
it is.
Via Rivera.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that when we do the vote, that we're voting for the St. Mary versus the little gem, right? Or unless you have another discussion or someone else has a reason why they want to pick the little gem. They're both beautiful.
Yes, they're both beautiful. They're both magnolias. One has large leaves, one has small leaves.
Yeah.
One has large flowers, one has small flowers. And they have similar height and width.
Eventually.
Yes.
So is there a reason why you picked the St. Mary's or someone picked the St. Mary's versus the little gem?
Variety.
Oh.
And then it became, so we have a lot of places where we put the little gem, a lot of streets that are designated with it, and it was a choice at that time to put different types of trees in different areas.
So I didn't look down the street. Are there more St. Mary's versus little gems? And that's why you were...
Whenever we're requested to plant a tree on Via Rivera, we plant a St. Mary.
Okay. So is that going to be included in your...
Does it need to be included in?
Well, I thought we were agreeing on the 2 trees in the front of their
Yeah,
house.
the motion was for the little gem to basically approve their application. I don't know that it's a distinction with much of a difference.
Would you prefer we include the trees in the motion?
Yes, because they're asking for...
I mean, he recommended something else.
St. Mary, or they're going to get permission to plant a little gem. And it's your prerogative. You can always vary from the designated street tree because they're asking you to do.
Okay, so you need to include St. Mary.
We don't need to.
You don't need to.
We can
I'm
do
just
it either
saying,
way.
you can say little gem, but you have to say one or the other, I think, is all.
I would second your motion that you originally proposed.
You had the motion.
Oh, I did, okay.
And I second.
It's getting late. All right.
Just say you were agreeing St. Mary was the one you recommended, and that's the one, the St. Mary tree. Yes.
Magnolia.
It's a street tree, but I don't think it makes a difference, and we're allowed to vary, so I would allow the applicant to plant that tree, the little gem. And that was the motion I made. And so I would just reiterate the same motion I made. And if
It wasn't clear to me you were saying that. little
Okay,
gem.
is there a second?
I second.
All right, shall we have a roll call vote?
Committee Member Rossig,
Yes.
Committee Member Nye,
Yes.
Chair Cooper.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and that leads us to committee chair and committee member reports, and we don't have any such reports this week that I'm aware of.
No, we pretty much talked about it.
But
I don't have anything on.
okay, and so I'll move that we adjourn the meeting. Thank you.